Welcome to In Search Of. We are the podcast for those in search of meaningful conversations around the automotive industry. I'm your host, Dan Barker, and I am thrilled, as always, to be joined by Wikimotive co-founder, automotive aficionado, and new father for the second time, Zach Billings. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Turns out girls are, in fact, easier than boys. Yeah, thanks for the new father thing.
Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping okay?
I'm guilty to say that I'm actually sleeping normally, and my wife a little bit less so. But yeah, it's going great.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. So please join me in welcoming top-selling author, auto industry thought leader, and all-around great guy, George Nenni of Generations Digital. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you for having me. How are you all? And congratulations, Zach.
Thank you.
Best days of your life.
Yes. Yes. Trying to soak them up. And awesome. Good to see you.
You too.
So, George, I know we've crossed paths, me and you, Wikimotive in general, and I don't think I've ever actually asked, you've got quite the 30 plus years of auto industry experience, marketing experience. That's a long run. How exactly did you get your start in, how'd you get pulled into the automotive space?
Yeah, it was a family business back in, it got started in 1989. Dealer Specialties was originally window stickers on used cars. And then, in the mid 90s really became more about data collection, photo collection, photography, and data syndication. And so Dealer Specialties was a family business I joined in 93. And we franchised initially from 94 to 2000, really covered the country and all the Canadian provinces, and had just, hundreds of franchisees out there doing their thing. And then the two brothers sold the business to Trader Publishing in January of 2000. They left and retired. I stayed on. Trader then began making acquisitions in CRM, websites, digital marketing, DMS, email marketing. And so I was fortunate enough to run a number of those businesses for them for a lot of years. And so got some good experience. Left in 2017 to start Generations Digital. So it's been a nice long road, but great experience all through. Got tons of inventory experience in those days, but also some great digital marketing in the early days.
Data runs in your blood and in your DNA at this point, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, to be honest, one of my favorite things about conversations with both you and Zach is a real educational approach to making sense of data and really complicated, what can be often complicated in a digital marketing landscape. So I think that kind of leads nicely into a direction for a conversation in an area that you're passionate about, George. Given that data mindset, where do dealers need to start demystifying their digital marketing?
We tell dealers just to always make the vendor dumb it down, make them define any acronym that may get thrown out. I mean, I truly think that digital marketing, the concepts are really basic. It's not that complex, but often it gets mystical because people will hold on to these acronyms or these. The latest is all around the AI schema, and everybody wants schema. They don't know what it is, but they know they need it. I mean, and it just sounds mystical and hard, and so the dealers just maybe shy away from it. One of the most satisfying things for us is being able to educate dealers and make them smarter consumers with digital marketing. And once you do that, I think that's one of the best ways that agencies can secure dealerships and lower their attrition is by educating the dealers. Because often dealers don't leave vendors because they go to another vendor and they know all the metrics from their current vendor, and the new vendor is going to have metrics that beat those. They leave a vendor because maybe they sat through a presentation or talked, someone in the 20 group mentioned it, and they just feel like, we've been with these guys long enough, let's switch. They could be leaving great results, they could be leaving poor results, who knows? But when you apply metrics to it, and that's really the first part for dealers, is just giving them the right questions to ask. So you don't need to be a GA4, Google Analytics 4 expert. You just need to know what questions to ask. Asking your vendors the appropriate questions, and then they run those answers down.
Yeah, asking the right questions for context so you can understand I think the bigger picture is where it seems to get lost. I think that's a common theme we see time and time again. When you talk about that educational approach, when working with dealers, either as an agency or as as a consultant, what's a common light bulb moment where all of a sudden the dealer has the information they need to make sense of, let's say, GA4 in this case?
Yeah, great question. It's really, I think, two big triggers for dealers when they're looking at Google Analytics and you start showing them, UTM tagging sounds so complex to a dealer. Oh my gosh, UTM tagging, I don't know what those letters stand for. Really, all you're doing is just putting a tag on the URL so you can track all your campaigns. And when you show dealers the magic of being able to see every single email campaign or every single Facebook campaign that they're running and showing them that, hey, this one is doing really, really well. Maybe let's put more fuel to this versus this. And then you also, that's the first part. The second part is the triggers. When you show them the triggers that occur with their chat tool or their digital retail tool, or even that there's a trigger on the photo carousel when someone advances the carousel, and you show the dealers that we track these triggers and we think they're really important, then they begin to say, like, this is really pretty basic, right? We don't want clicks, we want shoppers. And the way we'll tell the difference is by what they do. And so if we have a click that comes to our VDP and just throws up and doesn't scroll or doesn't go through photo carousels or call us or fill out forms, of course, then we don't want that. We don't reward that. But we do reward clicks that seem like a shopper, engage with the photo carousel or the video, advance through pages, and then hopefully phone call or chat or fill out a form. And so, once you show them those triggers, then they know what to look for, and then bad traffic like sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it's not difficult to find bad traffic because they know that they just got to look at all their different campaigns. What are we running, and which ones are hitting the triggers? Which ones are hitting the triggers that we're anxious to see?
Yeah, I've always liked on accounts that we've worked on together, your reporting at Generations Digital, just the visual way that you break down things like window sticker views or photo carousel views, things that are triggers that you care about that indicate shopping behavior, even if it's short of that, the ideal hard conversion. I think it tells a lot, and it distills it down in a way where you can see it, by channel over time, that makes it, I think, more digestible to the dealer. And that's great in your reports for sure.
Yep. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I try to stay away from like numbers and tables. Sometimes you'll go through an agency review and they'll show you the single number for the month. And, your first question is this good or bad? I mean, what was last month? What was the same month the last year or the 2 years ago? What's a benchmark? Like, I think you show it in context, and everybody loves colorful pictures. And I often say, like, if you can look at a report and quickly right away know, did I have a good month or a bad month? That's, visually, hopefully answering that. And then you dive into the tables, then you dive into the data and all the different campaigns and tables and whatnot.
Yeah, the show your work stuff.
Yes, exactly right.
I always get a chuckle out of the large percentages one way or the other without context, and you're like, wait, what? what does this mean? What do I do with like 3,700% of what? what am I supposed to do with this?
And then when the GM or the owner stops attending the calls or cancels or says we don't need to meet this month, I mean, that should be a red flag, right? They're no longer getting value out of it. It's not their most important meeting of the month. I mean, that's the goal, is that they learn things, they get insight on your product, insight on what's going on in the industry, whatever it is, best practices. And then they say after the call, like, I'm not missing that one next month. I always learn something whenever I'm on Zach's call. I mean, that's the goal.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's how vendors can continue to build value, I think. And, you guys are in an awesome position of kind of being able to be mediator and help with that and help, make sense of reporting. But for all the vendors listening, provide more value than just reporting the news and reporting a chart full of numbers, for sure.
ABV, always bring value, because if you're not, you're on your way out. Period. End of story, right?
Yep, agreed. And it requires preparation. I mean, before your meeting, how much time if you're a vendor, how much time are you preparing before your dealer review call? And if that's zero, that's a big problem. And you should come with screens ready. You should come prepared and immediately give them the highlights, the insight. Here's the things we're going to talk about today. I found something very concerning I want to look at, blah, blah, blah. Show them that you cared and you prepared for the call.
Yeah. A quick way for a vendor rep to lose the trust of their dealer is when a question comes up and the rep on the call doesn't know any more than what was on the prepared slide. And hopefully they did some of the preparation to have the slide in the first place. Right. But if a question comes up and it's like, I don't know, I would have to go look, and it's a basic thing, it's so impactful, and it really comes through if the rep has done their homework and they've looked at some data beyond just what they put in the canned slides. It's very clear. It's very apparent right out of the gate that, oh, you do know what you're talking about, and you've spent the time, you've looked at the data, and you're able to answer a couple more questions. It makes a big difference, and that preparation is key.
Well, you guys both are really touching on, I think, a really important subject of vendor accountability. I mean, how can or should vendors be held accountable, specifically within GA4 reporting? What's the right role for the dealer in that partnership, and what's an appropriate the role for the vendor or agency?
I think you want to start at the 30,000-foot level and say, what traffic came in last month and where did it come from? What channels or what campaigns? And then what did the traffic do? Which portions of the traffic engage the most on my VDPs, or if it's a service page. But if we're talking about sales, which campaigns engaged on my VDPs, which ones went really deep and stayed, which ones returned in subsequent visits. And which ones maybe look spammy. I mean, I would say that we've been doing this now over 8 years, measuring dealer performance in GA4 for hundreds of dealers, and bot traffic for me feels like it's maybe higher than it's been since we've started. And a lot of those sources are PMax, Performance Max. And so I think now more than ever, dealers need to know, where is my traffic landing and what's the behavior of those clicks. And if something seems like it's giving you like a crazy high conversion rate, 25% conversion rate, instead of high-fiving each other, ask yourself, is this really real? If it's 5 times as good as your organic search traffic, is it really real? Or is maybe each click giving you 5 or 6 click to calls, which you can see when you dive in. So I think what's going on with all my traffic? What's the quality of my clicks? Of course, which ones are converting into forms and phone calls? Those are easy. I mean, measuring conversions is easy. The tougher part, Nirvana, is really measuring good shopping behavior, because we can't just measure on conversions. That's the easy part. We have to say, of the non-converting traffic, which was real, which was not, which was a really good shopping engagement, and which maybe looks kind of body.
Yeah, something I think gets missed a lot in thinking about conversion and attribution is, sometimes somebody who just walks into the dealership is legitimately just a pre-existing customer. They bought their last car there 4 years ago and now they're back. But a lot of the time they came from a website source. They came from your marketing somewhere and they didn't convert on the website. They just walked into the store. And that's not just a store up. It's difficult to attribute, but the way to get the best gauge on that is figure out, like you said, a lot more of the signals that are baked into that traffic, and what's real, what's not. Are people engaging? Are they not? Or are they engaging too much, being a signal for bot traffic? Can you quickly illuminate what would be the primary way that you would look at this is bot traffic? What's the telltale?
Yep. So for us, and specifically, we focus on Performance Max campaigns from Google. I'm fairly convinced that Performance Max is a tool that's designed to help sell remnant ads on Google, like Discover and Display and Gmail and Google Drive ads. Performance Max has all kinds of different channels that dealers would never buy individually. And so you ask, so why are you buying the bundle? Why do I call it a Happy Meal? Because there's some things in the Happy Meal that you want, and you can only get those from buying the Happy Meal. And those are vehicle listing ads, VLAs. And so unfortunately, Google made that decision a couple of years ago and forces dealers now to buy the PMax bundle in order to get VLAs. But if you look in those PMax and you look in those campaigns, the things we look at, first of all, is going to be landing pages. And if we see, for instance, if you're running vehicle listing ads, what should be the right landing page? Vehicle detail page, right? They should all land on a VDP. But if you see half of all your VLAs landing on homepage and converting like crazy and having a new visitor, so the landing page on homepage is one of them. New visitor percentage, if that is over 92 or maybe 95%, I find that it's not real traffic and is a fairly good bot signal. 100% for sure is. Just when you look at the natural traffic that visits a dealership, it's just never really, high to mid 90s or 100%, right? It's shoppers that are in the community, maybe service customers that are checking on their car or trying to get book service, or maybe someone in a shopping cycle who's already been to your site through a deep link from cars.com. You're just not going to get 100%. So those are Those are primarily, and on each session we want to see what was the activity, where did they go. So in GA4 you can look at the click path. So if they land on a VDP and they immediately go to like my privacy page or my staff page, or just do odd page paths that the shoppers typically wouldn't take, then those could also be. But Zach, you probably have some other signals like that as well.
Yeah, it's very often case specific for sure, but I mean, it sounds like, bottom line, we I know we agree, which is if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and it deserves more scrutiny. And if it looks abnormal, as in really, abnormally short times, abnormally high number of page views, like you said, strange pathways and ending up on pages that, like, why would a high volume of people go to the staff page? Then yeah, that definitely tells you it bears more scrutiny. And then you can of course go, do we have any strange commonalities in operating system for that traffic, or location, something that might signal a common server that's causing that. Though that's not always a telltale these days. That's gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years.
Yeah, you're right. Like all desktop or all screen sizes. Sometimes screen sizes all being the same size can be like maybe a server farm.
Mm-hmm.
So for both of you, for dealers listening out there, I mean, where does PMax have some value? Because we kind of highlighted some real, obviously substantial problems with it. Is there any case in which PMax really is delivering solid value and ROI for spend?
I mean, I think for vehicle listing ads, of course you have to buy that through Performance Max, through that model, and properly tuned vehicle listing ads can do really well. And when I say properly tuned, it almost sometimes requires a hacker mentality. I would argue that probably the smallest agencies with the fewest number of employees who are not Google 5-star premier partners are going to be your better bet for that, because they're going to know how to game the system and how to get around that and how to get more than your fair share of VLAs. But if your vendor is saying like, hey, let's run a ton of PMax, let's run a Performance Max for your brand, the silliest thing I've ever heard of, at $4 a click, let's run PMax, let's switch all your campaigns to PMax. I mean, I would run in the other direction and really be worried, what's driving that incentive from the agency's perspective? Because I can tell you they're not looking at the data that we look at, which is that our advice is use Performance Max for the things you have to, and that would be two categories. So I mentioned the first one, VLAs. The second one would be Maps ads, running a paid ad in Google Maps. There's 2 ad slots in Google Maps. If you go to Google Maps right now and search for oil change near me, and typically big box retailers will buy those 2 ad slots. In Google Search in the map pack, there's 1 ad slot there as well, and that can only be bought through Performance Max. And so that would be another application. But outside of those, I would not. I would buy keywords so you can have your eyes wide open and you can know exactly what keyword am I buying, how much does it cost, what do they type in, what do they search for, where did it land. All that granularity is you don't have that with Performance Max, of course.
Yeah, it's really at the end of the day, outside of those two things where it's necessary, and even within those, a lot of dealers don't realize that it can be fine-tuned a lot. You can negative keywords at this point at the account level to help strip certain things out that it might go to. You can limit placement in terms of where inside of Google's network it shows up, to try and avoid like mobile games, for instance, which are not helpful. And then what people just don't seem to realize, which is exactly what you're getting at, is in most cases, it's better for you, the dealer, you, the person that the advertising is done on your behalf, to have more traditional ad campaigns. PMax is not your friend, it's Google's friend.
Yeah, the other thing is we do a lot of like, we try, and you guys do too, you're in the SEO business and you're great at it. When you look at organic search volume, when you run those heavy PMaxes that I think are either body or just grabbing a bunch of branded clicks, you can often see your organic search, your free traffic decline. And so here we are paying $4 and $5 for these clicks that are making our free organic search traffic drop. And so there's so many clear signals for folks that are paying attention to those data points to say that untuned, unleashed PMax campaigns will just burn through gobs of budget.
Absolutely. We see it all the time. You'll be measuring, clean amounts of organic traffic, everything's smooth, no bobbles in rankings, no bobbles in other signals, but all of a sudden some traffic just disappears. And often the telltale is, oh, we turned on a PMax campaign and it wasn't fine-tuned in any way, and it just started gobbling up things like branded search, and you'll see organic come down, paid come up, and when that's reversed, it often cleans it right out. But the devil with PMax that not everyone realizes, and I think some of the vendors who maybe are not looking as closely, that the less nimble vendors, maybe not everyone even realizes this at that level, which is that you can't see all of the keywords that are baked into what your PMax served, right? You can see that when you're doing traditional campaigns. So you can see, did it bid on ABC Motors when your store name is ABC Motors? The dealers need to realize that you can't see that with PMax, which makes it a lot more difficult to fine tune it if you don't know what to look for, or maybe what to assume based on existing knowledge, and knowing where those tend to go and what you need to negative out.
Yep, agreed.
It sounds like, to me anyway, what both of you are describing is really a hybrid approach to traditional SEM, keyword based, and PMax. Is there a prescribable budget split or a sweet spot dealers should be looking at in terms of where they're putting their money and their spend in those areas?
Yeah, it's tough to. I mean, rural dealers will spend less maybe than big city dealers, and cost per click, for some makes is higher than others. But I don't know. I should probably have more specific guidelines. But 100 new and used combined, 120 new and used combined is maybe a common kind of element for a single point store. I feel like maybe 8,000, 6,000 to 8,000 maybe at most would be the most I'd spend on paid search. We see dealers that size spending 3 and 4 and having great results. We've recently taken on some new customers and they're spending 18, and it scares them when you say to them, like, you could cut this in half and you wouldn't feel it. It wouldn't affect your business at all. And they have a hard time believing it, but as they slowly do that, they realize that, and then their organic search starts to rise. And Google is not a Swiss Army knife. Like, it's good at a few things. It's bad at a ton of others, like buying used car. That's a common one. Let's give us a feed of all your used cars, and we're going to buy all those used car searches, those make model strings. Just a horrible way just to light money on fire. Like, every once in a while you get a good click, but you spend a fortune, right? Much better off to go to a third party or other venues. There's other ways to market your vehicles other than Google, and a lot of those also have way less problem with bot signals.
Let's give them a definition for what PMax actually is.
I can try to give a shot at a definition of PMax, or at least how we perceive PMax. And so PMax was rolled out, a handful of years ago as being this, sort of mystical, magical AI new search tool from Google, where you can appear on multiple channels. And that data comes into Google GA4 under the cross-channel network, because it fires on different channels. And a short time after them rolling it out and us looking at the results, we found that it just looks really inefficient. And unfortunately, it's a black box solution. So what is Performance Max? Performance Max is Google's combined offering of Google Search, Display, Maps, YouTube, Discover, Google Drive, Gmail ads. They took a collection of all their different ad formats and kind of put them into a bundle, into a Happy Meal, and you have to buy the whole thing. And then to make sure that they sold enough of them, they put highly desirable products in there and forced you to buy those, like vehicle listing ads. Vehicle listing ads existed for automotive for a year and a half, before Google forced those into PMax. And I can tell you, we measured them before that, and they were wonderful. They landed 100% on VDPs. They were incredible. We were having dealers put a lot of budget toward those, and we loved it. And Google in September of 2023 said, well, we're going to do you a favor. We're going to take VLAs and move those into Performance Max. We're going to move those into the Happy Meal. And so now you don't know if your VLAs are running on search, or maybe your VLAs are just kind of a display ad on the Weather Channel, or maybe it's on a kid's game or on Google Drive. And so it's a search model where Google will not show you what the person searched for, will not show you where the click landed, will not show you really where your money's being spent. Now, recently they've loosened up on that, and they're starting to under pressure, right? So under pressure from large advertisers, Google has now started to share all this information that they said before they couldn't share because it was so mystical, and the AI just prevented them from sharing it. Well, now suddenly they can tell you, where those clicks come from. And they can allow you to put in negative keywords. They can allow you to now look at some of the search queries. But as they've done that, as they've shown that transparency, it's really, I think, opened a lot of advertisers' eyes, the ones at least paying attention, that PMax in many ways is a scam for advertisers and a way for Google to sell remnant ads they can't sell. They have a hard time selling Google Drive ads, right? Go figure. They have a hard time selling ads on Gmail because dealers would never want to buy an ad on Gmail, but they force the sale of those remnant ads, and they're able to sell all that extra ad space through the PMax bundle, right? I've owned Google stock for almost 20 years. They're not in the business of lower CPC. They're not in the business of lower budgets. They're in the business of bigger budgets and more ad budgets and higher CPC. And that's what PMax does to dealers.
I was going to say, Zach, any thoughts to add on PMax, the definition of it, or even, there have been some favorable changes over the past months to PMax, but only in some ways that we can both negative out and use clear attribution that says, hey, this might not be the best way to spend money.
I mean, where you're at is basically, they're introducing slowly but surely more tools under duress, as George said, to be able to do a bit more fine tuning and have a bit more visibility. And where you land at the end of the day is, for the most part, the better way to do it is to pull your budget out of that and use more traditional ads within the Google ecosystem, but more focused, because you can fine tune what you want. The thing I want to underscore that we're sitting here talking about the shortcomings of PMax for the most part here, and that might be very contrary to what dealers have heard from their vendor who's running a lot of PMax for them, both because it's easier for the vendor. So in some cases, that's the reason why it's being put up on a pedestal. It's very set and forget in many cases, but also the metrics tend to look good at face value, because either you've got a bunch of bot traffic in there, so that's easier to acquire. It can sometimes have higher figures, higher metrics. But also, if that PMax just went and overflowed into branded search, right? It's your store is ABC Chevy, and it started bidding on ABC Chevy without you realizing it. That is the lowest hanging fruit. That is the easiest click to get. So you're going to get cheap clicks overall. It's going to convert relatively well, but you would have already gotten those clicks through organic. And so just because the metrics look good at face value doesn't make PMax a better way of doing search. It just makes it an easier way of doing search, often at your own detriment, depending on the way it's fine-tuned.
In short, paying for clicks you would have likely gotten anyway in that case, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. George said something a minute ago on AI and PMax specifically, because one of the themes that I've heard repeated on PMax is, well, AI is just managing everything with this, and it's Google's AI, and their algorithm is just going to make this amazing. I think that's probably also a bit of a myth that needs to be dispelled in some way, shape, or form, because like you both have said, that really Google's selling you remnant ads that they couldn't sell you any other way using their AI.
Yeah, agreed. And it may have, there's an AI component. I can tell you the cost per click is fairly, goes haywire. So another metric we like to track, and specifically just because of PMax, is cost per click per day per campaign on paid search. And when you look at like a normal, like a branded, if or a Nenni Chevrolet, those cost per clicks don't change day to day, throughout a 90-day period. Same with dealer near me, Chevy dealer Cincinnati. Those clicks don't dynamically change. But PMax will rise and fall by $4 or $5 a click. It can be $1 one day, and can be $6 or $8 or even $15, the next day, and then back down. Like it's really seismic when you see the up and down. And I don't really have an answer for that. I wonder, is there a way to be able to tune that and smooth that? But the averages look good, but on certain days, dealers are just spending a fortune. Again, Google's into high CPCs, and so maybe it's AI, and maybe it's just Google being a little bit evil with their with the way they float that CPC. But you have to watch PMax cam. I mean, we tell our dealers, especially ones that are going heavy on spend, we want to review these weekly or every couple weeks because they get out of tune. Even with a great vendor, a good agency who's really good at kind of hacking around that, they'll just go out of shape, and then suddenly you'll start getting these hyper conversions, usually phone calls. You'll get 5 and 6 phone calls per click, and you got to go in there and sort of reset things and get those back dialed in. So it is cat and mouse, unfortunately. In many ways, for me, it's shame on Google. I mean, I wish they were more transparent. I've been to meetings, and the lower you get in the Google ecosystem, I mean, I think the automotive team understands the challenges that are presented, and to hear them, maybe they fought that decision to have PMax, have VLAs be put into PMax, pretty anti-dealer, anti-automotive kind of move. And so we're hoping over time they increase the transparency. I do think that VLAs are an incredible, properly tuned, they can be an incredible offering for dealers. If you can get your cost per click and keep it below 80 cents, your cost per conversion is generally pretty attractive and it can help move the needle. But it's just elusive trying to keep those things tuned properly.
Agreed.
Let's talk about the AI elephant in the room. AI in SEO and AI in content in general. There's certainly all the hype and all the momentum behind AI generated content, and how it's going to AIO and how it's going to affect AI. I mean, your SEO strategy and content. What's the actual effectiveness with AI as it relates to SEO today?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. We started measuring all the inbound clicks from ChatGPT and Gemini, and it's mainly ChatGPT, just inbound clicks to dealerships, several months ago. And the highest we're seeing is maybe 100 clicks a day or so from ChatGPT. And for a lot of dealers, it rose and fell. So it kind of peaked.
Yep.
Now. It's not growing like it was before. But I think it's super important to pay attention to. So dealers should absolutely be saying, I have to pay attention to this. I have to make sure that my pages are laid out the right way. I think there are some, maybe charlatans going around telling dealers, hey, did you realize your Google search is down 30% and all those clicks are coming in through AI? And unless you spend $2,000 a month with me getting all your AI, that's of course nonsense. Dealers should look and see what the volume of the traffic is. Google search traffic still dwarfs AI traffic, but it may not always be that way, and it probably won't always be that way. So I think the questions we're asking dealers is, and having them ask their website vendors is, what changes are you making to my layout to make my data more searchable and more crawlable by AI bots? And I think even and it's funny, I've heard some dealers in clubhouse rooms make comments to say that finally ChatGPT is finally going to be the thing to put Auto Trader and Cars.com and all these folks out of business. And I'm like, no, it's just the opposite. I guarantee that they are working on their sites right now to make them more spirable than a Dealer Inspire, Dealer.com, Dealer On website. When you go out and ask the AI, go to ChatGPT and ask them, what used cars are being offered in Oklahoma City by this Chevrolet dealer, and then ask that what used cars does Car Gurus have for sale, and you'll see that just the layout is just far superior. They're already moving in that direction. I've said a bunch of stuff, but I do think that of course dealers need to pay attention to make sure that their data is crawlable. I do think that AI is a great tool to be able to create content for SEO. If dealers are using a vendor or doing some of it themselves, I mean, I think you do have to still go through and curate it, and make sure that it reads properly, but it can give you a great head start. So we're very bullish on AI for dealers.
Zach, I think you had, I know one of the things you've been working on is some numbers around traffic and how it actually breaks out as percentages. Care to share some insights? I mean, we don't want to give too much away because I know we got MRC coming up in a month and a half or so. But care to divulge some insights there?
Yeah, working on a whole presentation for it, and this has become more and more the theme because I present on SEO every year and I try and make every single presentation fresh. And then AI every single year for the last handful of years has been a bigger and bigger topic in my presentations. This year, it's going to be mostly about that at the end of year conference. And so we've been looking across our dealer body, just like you were saying, George, how much traffic is there? Which ones is it coming from? You get a little Perplexity, you get, a little bit from Gemini, you get mostly from ChatGPT. I agree, for even a high volume, single franchise store, we're seeing typically upper end 100 or so, sessions in a given month from ChatGPT. On a percentile basis, I think what people are not realizing when they haven't gone and looked is very consistently, I see, Bing is a little less than 10% of what Google brought in, and ChatGPT is a little less than 10% of what Bing brought in. And, most dealers intuitively would be like,
let me stop you there. You said Google brought in. Now, be more specific than that.
so Google Organic, let's say Google Organic
Google Organic,
brought in
yep.
10,000 sessions in a 1 month span. Statistically, your Bing is going to be somewhere around 1,000, probably a little less than that. And ChatGPT in that example would be 100 or likely less than that. So you're less than 1% what Google brought in. And most dealers know that like Bing is not the search engine that we're hyper focused on. It's important, but it pales in comparison to what Google Organic will bring into your website for opportunity, for volume. And the LLMs are just a tiny fraction of that. And I also have been observing exactly what you said, George, which is it came up quite a bit. And for a while, I would say jury was out, and jury still is out. We don't know what the long arm of this looks like yet, but it looked like it could be the beginning of like an exponential climb, right? Where just more and more and more people would flock over to the LLMs, the AI tools, and everyone would forsake Google in time and go to ChatGPT, and it looked like it was the beginning of a steep curve. But then, just like you mentioned, we've seen it kind of come over the top, and it's more stabilized. It's choppy, I would say, but it's definitely not just continuing to climb off the top of the graph. And that's been interesting. There's a number of studies. We might even be able to roll one in, an image in. SparkToro did a cool study where, AI tool usage is continuing to climb. It's sort of steadying out as people have figured out what it's good for, what it's bad for, and they're getting more experience with it. It's continuing to climb, but Google is not going down as a result of that. Google usage by consumers, and it seems like that's holding steady. People know what they want to use Google search for. AI tools are a whole new thing that serves a different use case, and it's super useful, including for dealers, just not in all the ways that I think some of the vendors would put up on a pedestal and say, I've got a $2,000 solution for that.
We'll make sure we roll in some graphics on this, because I think it's really powerful when you see it. It's almost a little shocking, because you read the headlines and you're like, well, pack it up. The internet is over, and we've all been assimilated into the matrix, and AI is everything. And then what really I think the actual data shows is, especially around transactional, that couldn't be further from the case. Yeah.
We track, I would say almost every one of our customers' organic search traffic is ahead of 24, but behind 23. That's the most common pattern. So, yeah, when you read articles and people say search is down 30%, it may be for a lot of zero-click searches. I just don't think for automotive there are a lot of zero-click searches, other than like what's the phone number for Nenni Chevrolet or whatever. Generally, it's a more engaged click, but organic search traffic definitely not down by any percentage year over year.
And for those who do see it dramatically down, something that I think dealers would do well to take a look at is, if you have SEO currently, what is the SEO focused on? And without naming names, there are a number of vendors in our industry who have more cookie cutter solutions and only do content around those more informational, which are zero click topics. Yeah. If you want to know what are the trim levels of a Honda Civic, you don't need to click into a resource at this point to get that answer. You can get that on AI Overview. You can get that by asking ChatGPT. So if you've got a whole bunch of blogs that have been bringing traffic into your website for a long time, but maybe not a high converting traffic, more of an informational traffic base, you may have seen that fall off a bit of a cliff over the last year or so, as AI Overview has become more prominent, as some people move their informational searches to ChatGPT when they're doing research, because a great way to figure out if you want an Accord or a Camry is to go to ChatGPT and do your deep research that way, right? So fewer and fewer people need to end up on an informational blog, and if that's the base of what your SEO has been doing, it probably wasn't converting to begin with, but now the traffic is disappearing. I had one of our long-term clients, was in one of his 20 groups and got a composite report. And he's used to leading the pack. He saw his traffic volume had suddenly started lagging the pack. And that's alarming. I'm talking about organic traffic volume. And so he came asking, like, what's going on with this? Should I be worried? Like, I'm used to leading the pack. This is alarming. And we went and we looked closer at the traffic. And lo and behold, what you see is part and parcel with the timing of AI overview becoming more and more ubiquitous for searches. His blog traffic was coming down, but his conversions were untouched, and his transactional searches, which you can identify transactional using Google Search Console for those who don't know, that was all still strong, and if anything going up, and his conversions were still leading the pack in his 20 group. His traffic was the only thing that had dropped, and it was because AI overview was gobbling up these informational clicks with now 0-click results, because why click when it's just information that you needed? So we're not seeing a lot of impact at all to transactional search. That's really still just if you have good SEO, it's growing. If you don't have good SEO, it's probably pretty stagnant on the transactional front. If you have SEO that is informational in nature, you're seeing a loss of traffic now because it's getting gobbled up by 0-click.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had not thought of that correlation. We generally just steer them away from that because we will show them, hey, all these clicks, 0 gallery engagement, so they don't get on your VDPs, they don't advance the carousel. They're from the 5 largest populated states in the country, Texas, California, and Florida. And so it's just not, it's not your traffic, it's not your local traffic. And you can't even really localize it. I mean, you'll get a little bit local, but you're solving a problem versus really showing up for dealer searches or down funnel. Exactly
right. Exactly right. The stuff that matters is going to be that low funnel transactional search. And it's so important for everyone to realize with what both of us just said, the clicks on the informational stuff, the clicks on the blogs or whatever that weren't turning into conversions, they weren't turning into window sticker views, they weren't turning into gallery views, that traffic never mattered to begin with from a purchasing standpoint, a business standpoint. It was always fluff. It was always a vanity metric.
Yep. When we have dealers take down those pages, they have 0 business effect. Like it's not driving their business now.
Right.
So I think for the measured approach is AI can be a valuable tool, but it's certainly not the end all that the headlines or some headlines, never Wikimotive headlines, but some headlines might convey it to be. But where can dealers right now see some benefits in utilizing AI in their dealership, around their dealership, tools, etc.? Where can AI really be beneficial?
I'd say, there's a number of areas. I mean, first on the BDC, CRM, customer interaction side, either through messaging, SMS, even voice, inbound, outbound voice. There's plenty of solutions out there that can have AI, make outbound calls, answer calls, correspond with customers. I mean, I think it's important to, and we don't really consult on that side. We don't look at those conversations, but that's what we would advise is if you have an AI chat bot that's also has a human aspect, or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's pure AI. Are you inspecting those conversations? Do you look at what the quality of that conversation is? And have you secret shopped yourself as well? So all those customer interactions, I think people are busy, trying to solve those problems. There's a lot of applications for service. I think for a service writer or someone who's handling phone calls around that, troubleshooting, getting quick answers to how to reprogram the remote on a 2020 Tacoma, the garage door remote, whatever it is. All those answers exist. And then building content for the dealers that feel comfortable, creating their own content. If they're not using an outside agency for that, of course, it's very good at being able to build that content. I like getting into, one of my favorite exercises is doing a Google search and artificially trying to fire Gemini by saying something like, which Ford dealer in Cincinnati gives back the most to their community, or something where I ask an opinion and I get Gemini to fire. And then when Gemini fires, if my customer is not listed, I ask why. Why wasn't Nenni Chevrolet included in that, or Nenni Ford included in that? And then AI will start to give you those answers, and they'll tell you why the other ones were weighted. And then I'll look for signals, and where I see those signals, I want to find what the root of that signal is. And then you can sort of ask AI for advice. What content should Nenni Ford add to their website that would help them rank better for these type of searches? And you'll get lots of different answers. I mean, so we've never really been able to have a conversation with the search engine. And so now with AI, I think you do have an opportunity to maybe quiz the search engine and have it help you, help yourself, perhaps.
Yeah, the two comments I'll add to that. First, on the note of asking AI about its own results, or maybe catching it not being too sure. One of our dealers got a report, an audit recently. Mostly it was on technical SEO, things like that, and sent it to us, and we were taking a look through it, and I was like, I recognize the way these links are formatted. This is a ChatGPT output. So I went and asked ChatGPT, basically the prompt that I knew they must have used to get this output, came up with something very similar. And as part of it, it was showing, low-hanging fruit, things, activities in, a short period of time that could supposedly move the needle in a big way. And so I asked it the first prompt, and it spat those same things out. And then I asked it, go back through what you just gave me as SEO advice to improve this dealership's website, and highlight things that you identify as either old school advice or things that are at this point highly subjective in the SEO field. And it went back through its own answer, and it started to highlight things that it said, well, this is old school advice. This is no longer current. This is no longer something that is black and white and can actually go both ways. And it basically debunked probably 2/3 of what it had given me. And what that really told me is you need to know the questions to ask. That doesn't mean that a dealer can't do some of their own SEO internally, but it just means that you need to not take what you're given at face value and know to ask a layer deeper. And it might actually get its own drivers for how it ranks something or how it looks at something incorrect for the same reason. The other thing I would add is if you're a dealership and you're doing your SEO internally, which absolutely can be done, I think AI content can be a good place to begin because, being a professional writer is like, if you're the BDC director and you're also tasked with doing digital marketing, a common scenario that a bunch of people watching probably are in, you're not a professional writer. You may be able to put a blurb together, but you may not want to write a 1,000-word page about something. Using AI content as the base for that can definitely be the force multiplier that allows you to not have to have a writer on staff. I would just caution everybody that you need to fact check, you need to massage, you need to work that content or work the prompt quite a bit to be able to make it fit for purpose. Because if you just take what it gives you for, tell me about why we're the best store to buy F-150s in Cincinnati, that raw output is going to be very lowest common denominator and tends not to work very well for SEO if it hasn't had a bunch of massaging. And, at scale, we still use human writers because we figured out at scale it's actually less expensive to have a human being who's a professional writer in the United States write the content than to do all the massaging. But at scale, we also have the luxury of being able to have dedicated writers and dedicated editors and dedicated publishers, rather than having one person, as is often the case in the dealership marketing environment internally, trying to do it soup to nuts.
An observation of LLMs at this point is, or a thing to keep in mind from my experience is all of the commercially available, as into the regular consumer or dealer models at this point, are really tuned to give you the most plausible answer that sounds appealing at the lowest cost. And I think that's any one of these LLMs could give you a better answer, but at what cost in the actual electricity processing power to be able to be able to deliver that. So always remember, at least at this point, the answer you're getting is really tuned to the answer that you were looking for at the lowest cost to deliver an answer, which you'd go, yeah, it gave me a good response. So I think that's a really important thing to remember whenever you're using these is you're going to get what you were looking for.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And great points, Zach. There's so many mistakes if you have to inspect for mistakes. I mean, we've asked it to give us reviews on a dealer, and it'll go through and it'll do references from its for its competitor. Like one of the reviews is their competitor's review, and so it just gets confused on certain tasks. So,
yep.
So I know we're getting down to the end of time here. So we always like to do some rapid fire questions. So I'm going to point these at for both of you. The idea here is a sentence or two in response, so that we can keep this moving quickly and give a little bit of a snapshot of information. So. George, give me a single most dangerous assumption dealers make about GA4.
That is too difficult to use, that they can't implement it at their own dealership themselves.
Okay, I like that. And I'll add to it and say, for those who are using it, the most dangerous assumption would be that all of the data is always accurate as it's presented at face value. There are nuances you have to know.
All right, next up, Performance Max in one word: overhyped or underutilized?
Overhyped.
Overhyped in one word.
If a dealership had to cut 50% of their ad budget tomorrow, what should they keep?
I would keep dealer near me, dealer geo, paid search campaigns. Buying Ford dealership, Ford dealer Cincinnati, Nenni Ford, maybe brand depends, but you buy those dealer terms. They should be cheap and they convert very well.
Yeah, if we're thinking specifically in terms of paid search, and Digad, I would agree. It's dealer terms unless your SEO is strong and you've been able to capitalize on those really heavily and you're in strong positions. So I think that should be looked at. And VLA, assuming it's being watched and it's fine-tuned and you're paying attention, it can still be a great performer because it's vehicle specific. It's VDP specific.
All right, and last one. What's the single biggest red flag you've seen in vendor reporting?
Overstating conversions. So if you when you're looking at your vendor reporting, if the conversions are about the same number as the clicks, then they're counting page views as conversions, and they're overstating it, which limits your ability to really measure what's working and what's not.
Same. That and a lack of comparison points. If you have metrics without context, that's useless.
All right. Well, so to close out this episode, from both of you, give me a few thoughts on where dealers need to focus their attention in the digital marketing area over the next 6 to 9 months. George, what do you think? Where should dealers be focusing?
I think the two best paid opportunities are properly tuned VLAs and continue to be Facebook ads, carousel ads that land on VDPs. I think for dealers, just the basics, and again, you don't have to know any technology to know this. For all of your campaigns, ask to see what the ad looks like, ask to see what the ad copy looks like, see what the landing page looks like, and then show me those clicks. Show me those clicks and that they landed on those pages, and what did they do after they landed? Did they go through my photo carousel? Did they convert to a phone call or a form? Those are the most important.
Maybe self-serving, since it's our bread and butter, but SEO is not dead. Google themselves, Google's executives over this have made it very clear that there are no newfangled things that have radically changed because of the AI ecosystem. It's an important piece of the puzzle, but traditional, so to speak, SEO is still extremely effective and is the way that you get organic visibility. So making sure that you're investing in long-term sustainable traffic through that method is, I would say, number one. And then number two is, I would say, what George said.
Well, thank you both for joining us. George, where can people find you? Where's the best place for people to connect with you? Where can they find where you're going to be next?
Yes, just searching for my name is the best way. You could also just go to generationsdigital.com. That's kind of a mouthful. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be at MRC with Zach, and so looking forward to seeing your session there, Zach, as well. And so and then NADA early next year.
We'll look forward to seeing you at MRC, and that wraps up this episode of In Search Of. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next episode.